Hello there. In this video, I'm going to be showing you my new Daniel Smith paints. Now, I've been meaning to do a video on these for a little while because they have the most amazing granulating effect. And I'll explain that throughout this video. We're going to test them and show you exactly how I plan out my paintings and how I pick what colours I'm going to use. So you can sit back and just relax and enjoy watching this video. Now, Daniel Smith colours, the ones I want to show you are called Primatech. They're really original, unique paint pigments. Now, they're actually made from natural minerals, which is really exciting. They come from all over the world, and they crush them into a fine powder, and then they're mixed into paint for us to buy and paint with. Now, the granulation, it's what gives it a real sense of movement and that watercolour magic into your artwork. And if you're interested in wet, you are really, really going to love having a play with these. So sit back and I'm going to go through using the new paints that I've bought here. As you can see, I've got a selection, but I've also ordered a dot sheet. Now, this dot sheet has all of the colours that Daniel Smith do, whether they granulate or not. And I'm going to go through the chart and show you what I mean by that. And the name of each colour actually comes from the mineral that they're made of, which is really cool. So amethyst is actually made from real amethyst. Okay, so here are my dot sheets. And what I'm doing here is I'm just slowly making my way through each sheet, and I'm wetting and pulling the paint just to the side and making a nice, simple, quick swatch. Now, I spent a really nice, relaxing Sunday afternoon doing this. The sheet that I bought has 266 colours on it. Yes, you heard that right. 266 colours to play with. I mean, it's just an artist's heaven afternoon, isn't it? It also has 22 gouache colours, but I didn't mess with those. And I also didn't look at the glittery pigments as well, because I'm not really into those. So I didn't experiment with them. So I got 5 sheets, 5 big dot sheets. They're A4 size. And there's 266 colours to try. Now, I've just focused on the watercolour ones, as I say. This blue that I'm doing here is like a sparkly one. It's a pearl, and they do actually really sparkle, but I might come back and do them another day. So here's just a little close-up so you can see the magic that's going on. You can see some of them are really, really rich in pigment, and I barely have to touch it with my brush, and others I have to sort of work on. This is one of my favourites, Wisteria. If you like flowers, highly recommend it. So it's worth having a look here. It says transparent, semi-transparent or opaque, and this is in terms of the transparency. So lamp black is completely opaque, whereas McCracken black is transparent. So you can see how strong your pigments are, and this one's sort of like halfway, this one's halfway. So that's semi-transparent. So you've got quite a rich pigment there, but it's not going to completely block it. You can allow the colours to go through. So it's quite interesting. But then this one, red ochre, says it's transparent, but I don't really think that one is. I think that's quite a block. But yeah, a case of playing with them, I guess. So what I'd started to do is, because I'm going to use quite a few of these paints in future, I decided to use my sort of journal art workbook, and I'm going to complete a couple of pages with some of the colours that I really like. Now, I wanted to pick out the granulating colours because not all of Daniel Smith's colours granulate. And the reason I picked the dot sheet is because down here, it tells you quite clearly granulation, yes or no. So you see where I've used yellow highlighter. I've gone through each dot sheet and I've made a little yellow mark so I can clearly see which ones granulate and which ones don't. So it will help me in future when I want to pick those colours. Now, I'm going to do an owl tutorial following this video, and this is why I wanted to buy these paints, because I've got a few Daniel Smith paints, but I wanted some more. You can never have enough paint. You know what I mean. You just have to have it. When you walk in that shop, you think, oh, I need some paint. So honestly, these dot sheets are so satisfying for the inner shopper who's just itching to buy some new paint. This will save you an absolute fortune, because you can try all of the paints out and it avoids making a bit of a mistake. I have done this before without doing the dot sheets. I bought some blindly and they weren't really quite what I wanted. Now, if you watch along with me a little bit here with this paint dot sheet, you'll see that I'm having to work on some of these colours, like that one. I'm having to work on it a little bit. Some of them, the colour bleeds instantly and it's really rich and it moves quickly. It's really vibrant. Others are more transparent. Now, on the bottom of each sheet, it also tells you the transparency of them, which is really great. It also tells you if it's staining, if it's high staining or low staining, and also the light fastness in terms of years as well, which is quite interesting. But I'm focusing on the granulation today. See this one here? It's quite transparent. So that's going to come into play with which ones I choose as well. So now I've gone through and I've had to play with all of the colours, and I've picked out some of the ones that I'm interested in using for my owl tutorial. And what I'm doing here is I'm just going to do a little swatch in my book. So I've got a nice quick reference of which ones I really like. Instead of having to hunt through the whole of the dot sheet again, this is more of a quick reference for me. Plus I get to play with paints a bit more. And on a larger scale, I can pull the paint here and really see what it looks like in its different tones, from rich going to sort of more of a watery mix. And these are going to be really lovely for sort of the owl feathers. So this one here, lovely name, is called Lunar Violet. And that one's up for consideration for my owl. And I'm putting a G next to it so that I know that's a granulating paint. So granulating paint, it basically means that the pigments in it, they start to separate when they get onto the paper. And you get this lovely sort of gritty texture. And you just don't get it with other paints. You can get it with some blues naturally, but Daniel Smith are really well known for, because they use real minerals in their paint. Well, it's made from the real mineral. It just has this lovely, lovely magical quality to it. And I'm going to show you a close-up as this dries, so you can really see how the texture's starting to work. So you can skip ahead if you want to see, or you can just watch me. It's quite relaxing just to go through a swatch. So that one's called Alvaro's Fresco Grey. And it's a lovely sort of a stormy blue, that one. And then I'm just having a look, and I'm also looking at my reference picture. I've got a photograph of an owl that I've printed out. And I'm looking at that reference picture and trying to see what colours I think would represent really nicely what I'm seeing. So this is all part of your planning or pre-planning for your painting. And I always find that pictures come out best if you don't rush the whole planning side of it. It's really, really relaxing when you get new paints, just to take the time to have a play with your journal and just really get a feel for them. I think it's quite a spiritual thing, really. You connect with your paints before you actually paint with it. This one's raw umber coming in, and I'm just pointing out there that it's starting to granulate. I can see. Now, some will be more exaggerated than others. And the next one here is raw umber violet. Completely different colour. So you've got your classic raw umber, which is really nice brown. I use that an awful lot. Pretty much every hare or hedgehog that I paint starts off with raw umber. And this one is raw umber violet, so I was quite keen to try this. It's totally different vibe to it. It's got a really deep sort of burgundy tint to it, and as it trails off, it's ever so pretty. You could use this for all sorts of different pictures. So I'm just writing next to it the name of it, and this whole page is going to be pretty much all granulating paints. I think there's the odd one that wasn't, but I picked it because I liked it. Mostly this, well, it started out being what I thought I would use for my owl, and then it ended up just becoming a lovely swatch book of all the ones that I really like and that I wanted. So it filled a couple of pages. I think it went over a couple of pages. And then I thought it'd be interesting to try a sepia. I've got plenty of sepia from Winsor & Newton, which I use all the time. I've always used them, and I will continue to use them. I've also used AJ Ludlow, which is really lovely as well. Lovely quality and British-made pigments, so I highly recommend AJ Ludlow. But I wanted to try Daniel Smith sepia just to see if there was anything worth having a look at there, because I use a lot of sepia. I wanted to see just how granulating it could be. And because I paint a lot of animals, you're definitely going to need some browns in there. So this colour swatch is quite sort of earthy in tone, because I'm looking at browns and greens and some of the sort of darker end of the blue spectrum, but that's because of what I'm going to paint. Now this next one is really lovely. I didn't end up buying this one, but I kept looking at it thinking, oh, and you know when you think, oh, do I really want to add another one to my basket? I kind of had to hold my control in here because I really wanted this one. So it's on my wish list, and when I've looked back at it, this one dried really lovely. It's called Jane's Grey. Quite pretty, makes me think of sort of Sense and Sensibility and Jane Eyre. Here we go. Here's a little close-up for you. You can start to see the separation on that top one. That's the Lunar Violet. And then you've got Alvaro's Fresco Grey, Raw Umber Violet, Sepia, which is actually granulating quite nicely. And look at that Jane's Grey. Oh, just look at that. That gets me really excited. It's like little itty bitty in the paint, but it's still flat. It's lovely. You just get this real movement and depth in there. So this is my finished book. I've gone through all of my dot sheet and I pulled out the colours that were really calling to me. One just squeaked over the page. Isn't that annoying? I like it tidy on 2 pages. Never mind. I had to have it, obviously. So these are the dot sheets that I used to pull out these colours. As you can see, so much to choose from. I didn't go into the reds. I'll save them for another time. Okay, so I just wanted to show, now that I've done the colours in my book, the colours that I liked, I went through all of my dot sheets and I pulled out the colours that I think for the projects I'm working on at the moment I was quite interested in having. Obviously this is like a wish list. I can't afford to get all these in one go because they're quite expensive. But what I have done is it's helped me to organise what I have got. So here, what I've done is these are the Daniel Smith paints I've already got, and I've put them in order of colour. So I've gone with all my sort of browns and what I would paint my hairs in. So I've put those colours there. And then I've started to write on little bits of paper the names of the ones that I would like. And they also have like a similar tone, starting to come from the browns into sort of greys and light purples with a bit of a purple hue to it. And these are also Payne's grey and sort of darker blues going into your sort of greyer shades. So these are all colours that I would use to paint hairs. So I'm going to treat myself and buy these paints that I've selected here. And this lovely green one, which is called Rare Green Earth, because it goes really nice with this one, which I've already got. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. Zoyasite Genuine. But this obviously is quite a big tube, and that is this one. So I've ticked it because I've already got this paint, and this one goes really nice with it. So if I was to do some nice sort of greenery and grass around my hairs, they would be really nice, and the two complement each other. They work really nicely. They're both granulated, and they have a nice tone, but they're different in tone. So I quite like that. I like the olive, but that's quite a big jump, and I think these are quite earthy, and I would use those. I've also got the burnt tiger's eye. Tick that one as well, and that's over here. So basically that's what I've done, is I've bought a lovely ceramic palette, and I'm allocating that this is going to be my Daniel Smith palette. So all these colours are only Daniel Smith, and ideally all that granulate as well. So once this is, what I'll do is I'll squeeze a bit of each tube into here, and then I can pack my tubes out of the way, and I've got myself a ready to go palette. And what I'll also do is a little swatch for each side as well, in case I forget what's what, so I can use them until I get to know my palette, and I know what I'm doing instinctively after a while. So that's just a little video of how I would plan colours and create my own palette. It's something I wish I'd done years ago, actually. It's really going to help when I'm painting particular tutorials. So if I know I'm doing animals and hares and greenery and that sort of thing, and I want certain effects, if I want that granulated effect, then I can grab this and it's good to go. I can always pop it in a plastic bag or something to keep it, you know, nice and clean and air dust free. And then I can swap to another one. I mean, this is my current palette. It's got a bit of everything. So I've obviously had my hair colours here, and I've got Potter's Pink, and I've got Payne's Grey in here. And I have my Moon Glow, which has gone a little bit mental because it's been mixed in with this colour here. And yeah, it's not ideal. So I need to give this a really nice clean. But you see, you don't want to waste all the paint. So it's giving it a bit of a clean, but leaving this sort of splodge here, and then just completely clearing it out if it's almost gone. And then it would have been better planning, you see. This is what I just did straight away without planning. This is going to be the improved version, where I actually plan out all my colours, and they're going to suit a particular type of picture. So I could have another one. I could buy another one of these, and I could just put all my flower colours on it. So if I'm doing a botanical picture and I just want lovely, you know, rose and sort of wisteria colours, and, you know, really pretty floral colours, and all my greenery, then this could go on here. And then I can grab whatever palette I want. So if you are starting in watercolours, I would say, yes, I know these are expensive, but you could do the same theory. So get yourself a palette and some tubes, and start to create the palette that works for you at the moment with what you're painting. If you're painting, you know, seascapes and landscapes, have one for that, and then have another one for totally different subjects. And I think you'll find that will work really, really well for you. And always, yeah, do a little swatch as well, so you know what your colours are. But I hope that's helped. I really enjoyed doing this. I spent most of Sunday just sitting here going through all of these dot sheets, and yeah, just seeing what colours I liked, really. This is the one I didn't finish, but all the others I literally painted all of them. But yeah, have a go. And then you can also see as well, now that they're dry, I mean, look at the Moon Glow. This is the first one I used from Daniel Smith, and I fell in love with it instantly. And I'm really liking Jane's Grey as well. Look at that. Look at the granulation in there. The sepia, not so much. A little bit. Not so much. And I like this War Umber Violet as well. Sorry, it's quite late, and the overhead light isn't picking up. But look at that. Isn't that lovely? Lunar Blue. That one's on my list. There you go. I hope that's helped. So yeah, have a little experiment. Get yourself a dot sheet and have a go. Okay, so let's get all of these paints into this lovely palette. I'm itching to get started. Now, a little spoiler alert. I needed a bigger palette. When I got to the end of this, I realised I need a bigger palette. I need a bigger boat. It's ridiculous. Oh my gosh, you never have enough paint. There were so many colours I became a bit obsessed with while I was doing the swatch. And I planned out as best I could, but I soon realised that I wanted a few more spaces for some of the ones that I really, really liked and thought I would use. So there will be another Daniel Smith palette at some point. It's one of those things, isn't it? You always have to start somewhere. I mean, this is quite a big palette to start with. You know, you could start with, you know, just 5 or 6 colours and you could get so much from them. Because of course you can mix them all into all sorts of wonderful variations. I haven't done that here. I'm literally just showing you exactly from the tube what they're like. Yeah, that little one there was dried up, which is really annoying, but I can probably cut the end off and get to it. I'm also going to do a little video of how I've tidied up my little art space, because I had a whole box full of tubes, and then I'd pick some out and put them in a tin, and then pick some different ones out and put them in another tin or container, and it was getting a bit, there's stuff everywhere. And I just like to get on and be creative, but I do like to be like tidy and organised as well. But I'm not a neat freak. I can get messy, and then I just have to stop and go, oh God, I've got to have a clear up. So I really like something like this. It gives me a chance to sort of start afresh. And also, this is a perfect example. You see how I'm struggling to get this one out? It's almost dried up because the lid has gotten bashed about in the bag where they're all, you know, rattling around together. And it's obviously at risk of drying up now, which is frustrating and it's a waste. So one of the things that I've done is I've bought a large pegboard, and I'm going to organise all my paints and hang them up. And I'm going to show that in another video. So you might fancy having a go. I mean, it's only taken me 10 years to get one, but, you know, I get there in the end. So here I'm squeezing out all the green ones. Now, what I'm going to do after this, once they're all in here, this video was done before my delivery came. So this was me pre-planning. And then my delivery came of my actual paints that I'd ordered. And that's when I realised I'd ordered too many, gone a little bit off my list, and a few extra had snuck in my basket. And my palette wasn't big enough. But I always show you everything here. I don't do a sugar-coated or, you know, sun-tinted version of life. I always show you exactly what pickle I get myself into. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm cutting some large strips of my watercolour paper. Now make sure you cut the same watercolour paper that you actually use. So you'll have to sacrifice a page, but it's worth it. Can you just see in the middle of my palette here, I've got a tiny swatch. I started doing that and then thought, right, yeah, definitely, I need a really big swatch next to these paints until I get used to them. So here I'm just trying to be nice and tidy and organised. And I'm going to take my time to add a swatch with the name of the paint next to it and trying to show, you know, the dark tones of it. And then when it sort of is added a little bit more watery as well. And this will be a quick reference to me so that I can keep track of what's in my palette, because this is all really new. These are new paints. There's no way I'm going to remember all of these. And I don't want it to distract me while I'm painting. So here I'm just going to go through and just fill in my little chart. And I'm going to speed it up so we can whiz through it. Okay, so I've just sped it up a little bit here, but you'll get the idea of what I'm doing. Now, while I was doing this, I was thinking about all the types of tutorials that I want to do and what colours I'm going to be using. So it's a really nice way just to kind of take the pressure off yourself and just play with your paint and get a feel for it without feeling the pressure of, oh, what am I going to do with this paint? This was, as I say, a lovely Sunday. I just sat and I played with them. And then I'm just writing the names next to them. Now from the bottom up, this is green apatite. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Then we've got Under the Sea Green. Then we've got the Zoist Genuine. Then we've got the Rare Earth. And then Bloodstone Genuine is this one here, which is kind of like an aubergine colour. I was quite interested in that, and it granulates beautifully. And then you've got the turquoise at the top, and Neutral Tint is the very top left, which is a lovely stormy bluey purple. Highly recommend Neutral Tint. That's lovely. And it's starting to come together. So then I needed to go to the other side. So here I've got my browns going down into sort of a bluey colour, but this is where I got in a bit of a pickle. Excuse my water here, probably should have changed it again. But these are all brown, so it's going to get murky very quickly. The very top one is Van Dyke Brown, which is a really nice different tone to a brown that I normally use. It's quite strong, it moves nicely. And then I've got my classic raw umber, which I love and I use for everything. Now this separated quite nicely as well, and I think if you mix these together, they work really nicely. But this is kind of a staple, the raw umber. So this is the sepia. Nice, rich pigment, lovely, lovely colour. Absolutely have to have this one. And then this next one is called Hematite Genuine. It's very transparent, and it would be really lovely for doing like feathers. It's got a lovely granulation to it, but it's very, very light and transparent. And this one is my absolute favourite, my Moon Glow. I just can't get enough of this colour. The granulation's beautiful. It's got a really pinky purple blue hue. And when you look at it up close, it's just a real mixture of lovely colours in there. Absolutely stunning. And then we have Hematite Violet Genuine here. Now I took a bit of a gamble on this one because this had lovely colourings in it that suited the owl tutorial. So I have treated myself to this one. And then I've got Payne's Grey, which is very, very useful. I use this pretty much all of my tutorials. I'll use a bit of Payne's Grey. If I'm doing hare's ears, and I'll mix this with Potter's Pink for noses and little mice feet and hands, or paws I should say. So here I've slowed it right down so you can have a really good look at these colours. And it's still wet, so you can see the granulation. You can see how it's drying. And here is my completed palette. So I've got my browns, which I'll use for lots of my animals. And then as we come around, we're moving into the richer brown tones, greys, blues, and that unusual violet, which is more, it should be with the browns really. And then I've got that lovely natural tint coming into the greens. So this is the palette that I've put together of Daniel Smith, and this is all beautifully granulating. I can't wait to use them. And the ceramic is lovely to mix on as well. It just feels really nice. So I would highly recommend treating yourself to one. So I've turned my book sideways here so you can see all the colours and a little bit of close-up detail. So here's my finished palette, and I've got my reference book as well. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to plan out which of all these lovely colours I'm going to use to paint my owl. I've printed a picture out. Now this is in reverse of what I'm going to be painting, but that doesn't matter. I'm just looking at the colours. So I'm having a look at my picture and trying to plan what am I going to use for the first layers, the lightest tones, the mid-tones, dark tones and everything. So we're going to break all of this down. So I'm looking at the main body of the feathers and I'm thinking either the Goethite Brown Ochre or a really lovely new colour that I've got, which is the Hematite Violet Genuine. So what I'm going to do just on a spare piece of watercolour paper is just literally create a rough sort of plan with the colours. So I'm So I went through all of my colours first, then I put them in my planner, and now I'm really whittling it down just to what I'm going to use for the painting itself. So I'm layering some over another colour, just getting a feel for how am I going to create the colour in the picture. Now, I already knew I didn't want it to be an exact replica of the colours. It's more a bit of indulgence, really, that I want to have a real play with these colours. So I don't mind if it goes off the actual colour scheme a bit. As long as all the tones work together, then the picture will work. So that's the most important thing. So don't worry if you don't have the exact colour of something. That's not really, unless you're really fussy, I don't think that matters that much. I mean, I've painted hares with blues and purples, and they do not have purple and turquoises on them, but I did that originally. I love to put in a bit of turquoise in a hare's ear. It's about the tones. So I'm looking at the darkest section of my picture, and this would be a good way to start to break everything down, because it can be a bit overwhelming when you look at a picture and think, oh gosh, where do I start? I would recommend look at the most obvious tones first, and then look at the darkest tones. And once you've got those decided, see, I want to have some dark blue in the wing mixed in with the brown. I'm definitely going to use sepia. And now I'm trying to discover what sort of blue I like as well for that dark tone. So I'm just making a little note for myself here and for you visually what I'm doing. So the top part is the light feathers. And I've decided I'm going with the Goethite Brown Ochre, and I'm using the Hematite Violet Genuine up there. And then this bit down here is the darkest feathers. So I'm looking at Payne's Grey, I'm looking at Moonglow, I'm looking at Natural Tint. This is the Lunar Black, which is a new one that I've just purchased. I'm just going to use it straight from the tube. And I'm just having a think what the eye is going to look like. So I've just done a little rough eye there and left a little white dot just so I can have a think and see how that dries. And if I think that's the right colour for the eye. So some of it you will have to leave to dry before you make your final decision. So I'm having a look at, this is Neutral Tint, I think. So again, this is the dark feathers and the darker shadows of the body. If you see between the owl's legs, it has that lovely deep dark shadow in there. So how do I want to represent that? And there's a new one here that I'm looking at as well from the new dot sheet. And this is the Hematite Genuine. It's very transparent, which I think is going to be very nice for feathers. It's going to be lovely for those really light shadow areas within the body of the owl. So I've marked that as light areas possibly. It has a lovely granulating texture. The Hematite Genuine, that's a new one that I purchased because I do quite a lot of animals, and it's quite nice to try something other than sort of Payne's Grey for shadows. I normally use Payne's Grey, very light wash of it to do feathers, sort of the under feathers with robins and things like that. So here's my contenders. I'm going to go with Moonglow. It is a bit of a favourite. I always fall back on it. I just love Moonglow. So that's going to go in. And then I'm using the Goethite Brown Ochre for the main sort of lighter brown areas of the feathers. I've decided I like the Lunar Black for the eye. I'm going to give that a go and see how that comes out. And I'm also going to try Bloodstone. Now this is a new colour that just crept in when I purchased some. It's called Bloodstone Genuine. Now they describe it as an aubergine colour. I would say it's more black. I can't really see a purple tint in that, but it granulates really nicely. And the bit where it granulates, it almost shimmers. And that's where I'm seeing a little bit of purple tone. So there's obviously, it's come from a bloodstone gemstone. So just about the paint itself, bloodstones, also known as heliotrope, for those of you who are into your gemstones. And the classic bloodstone has jasper in it, which is where you get this tiny little bit of red pigment and coming through with the black. But what I love about these is the idea of using real gemstones to paint with. I think that's really magical. I love crystals and things like that. So this is lovely to be able to be painting in my artwork, not just create a nice piece of artwork, but you're actually using real gemstones and crystals to paint with. How cool is this? So here I've decided on my colours. I'm liking how they look. I can see the granulation happening in them already, and I'm itching to get started on my owl. But taking time to do this before you dive into your painting, I highly advise it. Not only is it good fun, but you're really honing your observational skills as well. And you can just plan everything out. You know exactly what you're going to do. I'm also looking at the greens that I'm going to use for the little log that I want the owl to be standing on as well.